Well, good morning there. Saturday, nice and early. Have the coffee. I went to bed at 1 a.m., 2 a.m. last night. I think some of you saw me on the YouTube live leaving the stadium after hours. Got a little tour of the media room. You saw how that place looks after everybody, except me, had left. Well, I have to head back to Levi's in just a few minutes, but I promised you the more formal sit down live to recap last night, set the day for day 3. So, pardon me, but I do have to have the coffee this morning because this is the day game after the night game. That's the portion of the NFL draft that simply you just got to gut it out. The 49ers got really busy at the end of round 3 last night. 2 picks, obviously, on Tyrion Davis-Smith and then Danny Gray. They were bang, bang. And then we had the John Lynch press conference, and that was sandwiched by Zoom conferences for Davis-Smith and Danny Gray. And we had to write all kinds of stuff. And then that's when I said, well, I'm not going to do this video at home. I'm going to do this video on my walk to the car at Levi's Stadium. So last night's live was a impromptu tour for you, a video tour. I think a lot of people appreciated it. But hey, I also like the 8K camera that we got right here. I don't really think it's 8K, although maybe iPhone 13 is 8K at this point. Shouldn't give away the secrets, though. It is an iPhone 13 that gets this nice little cinematic mode shot that's a little bit better than the lens flare that I was getting as I was walking out of Levi's yesterday. Anyway, we don't have much time, so I just wanted to give people a few minutes to filter in here into the live. Subscribe to the channel. If you're watching this later, also subscribe to the channel. And let's talk about what the 49ers did last night. Let's also talk a little bit about Deebo Samuel because I'll spoil what I'm going to talk about a little bit later. Talked to Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch yesterday. I will say this. The 49ers seem very confident that they can mend the fence with Deebo Samuel, figure stuff out contractually. They obviously didn't trade him in days 1 and 2 of the NFL draft. Yesterday, they essentially said they're not going to be trading him. They also said that on Monday, but a lot of people didn't listen. Well, now Deebo Samuel's still on the roster, entering day 3, and it also seems based on some of Deebo's behaviors that he's chilled out a bit regarding his stance toward the 49ers, and maybe that's not surprising. The 49ers called his bluff. They said, hey, we're not going to trade you. We believe that you're going to show up and give us 100% this year. You're still under contract. What other recourse does Deebo Samuel have? No realistic recourse if he actually wants to make money and actually wants to make big money as soon as possible. If the 49ers won't trade him, he is their conduit to big money. So that means that Deebo Samuel has to play ball with the 49ers. Anyway, we want to talk about the draft because the 49ers picked 3 players yesterday. They picked Drake Jackson out of USC, pictured right there. They then picked Tyrion Davis-Price. Sorry, I said Davis-Smith. It's early. Maybe I need to have another drink of coffee right now. Tyrion Davis-Price, LSU running back. And then they picked Danny Gray, SMU wide receiver. 49ers still have 6 picks to go, and they'll be on the clock here in a couple hours. I got to head to Levi Stadium as soon as we finish this video. But let's go pick by pick. Drake Jackson. He was an athletic freak who was projected to go in the top 10 of this season's NFL draft less than a year ago. That's right, on May 4th, 2021, in his post-2021 mock draft, Dane Brugler of The Athletic had Drake Jackson going number 7. Again, the 49ers at pick number 61 got a player who had been valued in the top 10 as recently as last May. USC had an incompetent coaching staff that got fired this past year. That was Clay Helton's staff. And they just didn't use Drake Jackson correctly. In fact, they had him down in the 240s playing a linebacker position, even though in 2019 as a freshman, he was up at 270 at a pure defensive end edge rushing position, just dominating people. And if you want to talk about Drake Jackson dominating people, well, why don't we watch some of his highlights right here? This is just a sampling. And, it's funny enough, in that first picture, they have Drake Jackson dropping back into coverage. You can see how athletic he is immediately. But when you start to see Drake Jackson rushing the passer, you see the twitchiness and just he's got lightness on his feet, despite the fact that he's not a small guy. I mean, even the 240s is not small, but he's going to be in the 260s or 270s in the NFL. There he is playing Stanford, a nice little run stop. I think on this third clip, we're going to see Drake Jackson roaring around the edge against Washington State. Yep, here you go. forces the strip sack in the end zone. Left tackle had no chance. You could see that athleticism pop off the screen with Drake Jackson, and that's just to whet your appetite. Maybe we'll watch one more angle of this coming off that edge against left tackle. Then I'm not going to play any more videos in this segment because I will have dedicated film breakdowns for these players. Drake Jackson around the edge, that was a big strip sack in the end zone against Washington State. This guy can legitimately do backflips, like cartwheels, backflips, gymnastic moves. He shouldn't be a defensive lineman. He literally is an athletic freak. And the fact that he was playing at a lighter weight in the 240s last year with some nagging injuries on a USC team that was going nowhere, that fired its coach in the middle of the season, I think that made him dip under the radar. And he obviously fell down to number 61. In short, Clay Helton's USC staff likely cost Drake Jackson a lot of money, but now Kris Kocurek has his hands on him. So Drake Jackson, meet Kris Kocurek. Kris Kocurek obviously is the 49ers defensive line coach who is one of the best in the business. And I asked Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch yesterday, how much input does Kris Kocurek have in a selection like this? Because Drake Jackson, just like Tyrion Davis-Price and Danny Gray, visited the 49ers in the pre-draft process. That ended up being an excellent tell of who the 49ers might pick in rounds 2 and rounds 3. And John Lynch just laughed, and then he turned to Kyle Shanahan, and he got about 2 inches from Kyle Shanahan's face. He was impersonating what Kris Kocurek does, and he says that he just sits there 2 inches from a defensive line prospect's face and just yells at him for like an hour. He's yelling questions. He's getting up in his face. He's trying to figure out what this guy is made of. And then Kyle Shanahan answered my question as well. They both answered this question about Kris Kocurek, and Kyle Shanahan just laughed, and he said, after a little bit, we have to send somebody in to save the kid from Kris Kocurek because the guy's so intense. But anyway, Kris Kocurek now knows Gabe Jackson. Gabe Jackson's got all the potential in the world. 6'2", 6'3", a little bit on the shorter end for, what you'd expect from one of these, ultra freak defensive linemen, but his arms are long. He's got 34-inch arms. So his arms, he's got the wingspan of somebody who's 6'5" to 6'6". He can keep those offensive tackles away, and he's just got an amazing burst, the athleticism, the bend. I mean, you go to my Twitter. You could see him doing backflips and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to have a dedicated video on Drake Jackson later, so make sure you subscribe. This is just scratching the surface right here. We're just tip of the iceberg stuff this morning, but Drake Jackson he's just an uncanny athlete for that size. I mean, we talk about Richie James doing backflips. Richie James doing backflips at 180 pounds is a little bit different than Drake Jackson doing backflips at 260 to 270 pounds, just to give you an idea. So Kris Kocurek has got some real moldable clay to work with here. And let me tell you what, Drake Jackson didn't have a bad year as a junior last season at USC. It went under the radar, and his draft stock slipped because of how terrible USC's program was and how misutilized he was and some of those nagging injuries, but he still led the team in pressure rate, over 14%. He still led the team in tackles for loss with 8. And you saw some of that film right there. That was Drake Jackson roaring around the edge, doing some good stuff for the 49 for USC last year. So anyway, let's move on. Tyrion Davis-Smith. Don't have a whole lot of time here before I have to head off to Levi Stadium. That's Tyrion Davis-Smith. Big running back for LSU. The 49ers' goal for the running back position is about strength in numbers. I have it there on the text title. You see it there on the title of the actual article that I wrote for The Athletic. But Tyrion Davis-Smith is going to be part of a committee in the 49ers backfield. And I talked about the 49ers needs entering day 2, and bolstering the running back room was absolutely one of them. So the 49ers did it in the 3rd round. Tyrion Davis-Smith wasn't mocked by somebody who lives in their mom's basement until the 5th round. So what? The 49ers picked him lower in the 3rd round. I mean, the fact that people are upset about this, the fact that people think that some amateurs mock draft has more credibility than Kyle Shanahan's opinion after Kyle Shanahan actually met the kid, after Kyle Shanahan actually got to put his position coaches through the car wash to, I mean, to me, the complaints about the draft are so laughably ridiculous because it's such a crapshoot to begin with. And then, I mean, it's even more of a crapshoot when you start zeroing in on the exact location of picks, whether it be the late third round or the fifth round. The bottom line is that the 49ers needed a running back because that position group is consistently decimated with injuries. The way that Kyle Shanahan delivers on offense, he feeds that running back position, right? By the fourth week last year, Kyle Shanahan noted yesterday, the 49ers were having to steal guys off other teams' practice squads just to field a competent backfield. That was Jacques Patrick. He hardly got any run for the 49ers last season. But Deebo Samuel ended up having to play in the backfield for the 49ers, largely in part because they didn't have enough capable physical backs to get the job done, to allow the offense to roll. So once they moved Deebo Samuel into the backfield, they had to have, they finally got going once that happened, but they had to have it, right, when Deebo Samuel was in the backfield. Well, they want to lessen their reliance on Deebo moving forward, not only as a running back, but also as a receiver. So you look at these two picks, Tyrion Davis-Price, and then moving into Danny Gray. Both of these guys should be able to take a little bit of a load off of Deebo Samuel, and that's a good thing because if you're going to sign Deebo Samuel to big money, and it's certainly trending toward that, you want to preserve Deebo Samuel. You don't want to run him into the ground. So anyway, Tyrion Davis-Price, he played at 230 at LSU last year. I think for the combine and all that, he cut down to about 211. We're going to have to find out where exactly his playing weight's going to be, but I would venture to think that in a 49er system, it's not going to be any more than 220, right? You still have to be able to hit the outside zone. You still need that burst. Now, Davis-Price is a downhill runner. He might be the best inside zone runner that the 49ers have immediately. I think Elijah Mitchell is tough. He's bruising. He slips through. They call him Drano. But his specialty is still hitting that outside zone crease. Tyrion Davis-Price, to me, you put on the tape from LSU. This guy, I mean, he could slash right up the middle. I like Trey Sermon as well in that regard, and I think Sermon's going to get more run here with Trey Lance as quarterback because I think the 49ers are looking for some more inside zone action. They're evolving from an exclusively outside zone system to an inside zone hybrid system where you see, some read option with the quarterback. And Davis-Price, I mean, well-built, downhill runner. He's physical. There's a couple truck stick highlights. We'll do the dedicated videos, so subscribe, or I'll show you those truck stick highlights. I don't have it ready just right now. It's a little bit too early in the morning. I got to head to the stadium. But trust me, this guy's a physical load, and he's going to bring a nice complementary dimension to the 49ers backfield. Now, you have Davis-Price, and you have to ask about any rookie's ability to pass block because that's going to determine whether or not they see the field. And because he's a bigger body, because he's built from that physical toughness cloth, right? Davis-Price can block, and that's huge. And he puts a big premium on his pass protection skills. And the 49ers obviously put a premium there. Now, Davis-Price, when he visited the 49ers a few weeks ago, actually ran into Mike Shanahan in the building. And that stood out to him most about his visit. So, boy, what a slam dunk. The guy knows his football history. Remember, guys that are drafted these days, they're not old. I mean, these guys, if they're 20 years old right now, that means they were born in 2002. It means they were born after Mike Shanahan won his Super Bowls. So for a player these days to say, hey, the biggest deal of my visit was meeting the two-time Super Bowl winning coach of the Denver Broncos when I was at the 49ers facility, and Mike Shanahan, I think that's pretty cool. I think that shows that Tyrion Davis-Price is a student of the game. And if you're a student of the game, you're going to be able to pass block. And that's really important, especially with Trey Lance coming in as the 49ers starting quarterback, presumptively this next season. All right, now we move on to the 49ers' final pick of day 2, Danny Gray. This is what he said yesterday. I bring elite speed, I'm great in open space, and I'm a deep ball threat. Those are all the key points for Danny Gray. The kid is explosive. Just YouTube him right now. Don't stop watching here. Hit the subscribe button if you're going to leave. But Danny Gray, he runs away from everybody in that overmatched SMU competition. He's ready for the next level. Now, he's a little slighter of frame. Some people say that he's 6'2", and I Googled it, right? Why are people thinking that Danny Gray is 6'2"? Because I guess there are some websites that inflate guys' height. And it's funny because Danny Gray's listed anywhere from 5'11" to 6'2", and that's a big, big difference. 6'2", 200. He's not 6'2", 200. He's 5'11 and a half or so. 5'11 and a half, 186. He might have lost a little bit of weight to run really fast, right? But he ran that 4.3 at the combine, but he still runs fast even if he was at a heavier weight when he was on the field this past season for SMU. I mean, the guy blazes. The 49ers needed the deep threat. They needed to bolster the receiving room, which was full of physical guys who are knocking people's mouth guards out, obviously in Deebo Samuel, obviously in Juwan Jennings. Brandon Ayuk is dynamic. He could do everything, right? He could run away from people. He could run through people. I mean, he's gotten wider over his time with the 49ers, but the 49ers needed a pure burner, especially for Trey Lance, who's going to try to extend some plays and uncork it downfield. Remember when Lance first started last season? 49ers inserted Travis Benjamin into the lineup against Arizona, and they had him run those field stretching routes. They didn't throw to him, but they had him run the field stretching routes. Well, with Danny Gray, he's going to run some field stretching routes, and I think the 49ers are going to try to throw to him. So, interesting prospect, explosive prospect. Yes, he's not afraid to block. The 49ers, I mean, John Lynch mentioned, this guy is tough. And this guy, brings some physicality, but he brings it in a smaller package than the running back, Tyrion Davis-Price. So you have two complementary skill sets, really. And we know that the 49ers use their running backs and receivers a little bit interchangeably. I mean, that's at the heart of the Deebo Samuel discussion right now. So those are the three picks: Drake Jackson, Tyrion Davis-Price, Danny Gray. Good stuff for the 49ers, and we'll see how those three guys pan out. So anyway, let's move forward here because I got to go in just a few minutes. The 49ers seem confident, and Kyle Shanahan spoke for the first time about Deebo Samuel publicly. And obviously, Deebo didn't get traded over the past 2 days. And that means that he's very likely on the 49ers to stay, at least for this 2022 season. But, man, you've got to think it's going to be longer than that with how the 49ers value Deebo Samuel's production. Obviously, they weren't going to trade him for some of the laughable offers they got. I think the Jets were going to send number 10, but they wanted number 2 back for the 49ers in a pick swap. And the only other pick in that pick swap would have been a number 5 headed to San Francisco. Absolutely not. That's what the 49ers said, and they repeated that yesterday in public in front of the media. Absolutely not. That was not going to be enough to pry Deebo Samuel away from us. So no King's ransom, no deal, and the 49ers are confident that they can mend the fence with Deebo Samuel. Long answer from Kyle Shanahan about how emotions typically get involved in situations like this. Contract stuff is difficult. Obviously, egos get involved as well. Kyle Shanahan didn't use those exact words, but you could tell that he recognizes that the current disagreement between the 49ers and Deebo Samuel and his representation, obviously, Tory Dandy, isn't something new. This is stuff that happens in the NFL. And Deebo's up for an extension a year before his rookie contract runs out. So the 49ers have leverage, obviously. 49ers, in the cases of George Kittle and Fred Warner, which were very similar to this one, opened up with smaller offers because they do have that leverage with that full year of team control still left. Sounds like they might have done the same thing with Deebo Samuel. Sounds like some feathers may have been ruffled. Basically, everything that we've been saying about the situation over the past couple of weeks is turning out to have been the case. And the 49ers decided to keep Deebo Samuel because he's so valuable to them. And now it's time for both sides to put on the big boy pants and find a way to meet in the middle. And they still have time. It's still April. I mean, I keep on saying that, but it actually still is. It's April 30th. Tomorrow it's going to be May. So we could say it's still May. George Kittle, Fred Warner didn't resolve their deals until July. So 49ers have a couple months for this. If Deebo Samuel wants that money in his bank account sooner rather than later, if he wants that signing bonus sooner rather than later, he's incentivized to find a meeting ground in negotiations with the 49ers sooner rather than later. Then John Lynch talked a little bit about Jimmy Garoppolo. He was asked about Jimmy, and he said, we're not going to trade him unless there's an appropriate offer in place. So the 49ers held firm with Deebo Samuel, and they can afford to hold firm at least for a few more months with Jimmy Garoppolo until they get a commensurate offer. And that probably doesn't have a great chance of happening until Jimmy Garoppolo can throw a football, until their teams are confident that he's overcome that injury. But maybe it happens sooner. Who knows? But John Lynch said the 49ers won't budge off their current stance. And hey, at the current moment, there's no reason for the 49ers to say anything different Because if you let go of Jimmy Garoppolo right now, just through a standard release, you owe him $7.5 million through the injury guarantee. It's before he passes a physical. So if you're the 49ers, you want to sit in the holding pattern right now. It doesn't benefit you at all. Who goes to the store and, I know this is a problem that most people don't have, but who goes to the store, doesn't buy anything, but writes the cashier a check for $7.5 million? It's essentially what the 49ers would be doing by releasing Jimmy Garoppolo early. Now, if you wait until he recovers, that injury guarantee is not in effect anymore, and you actually don't owe Jimmy Garoppolo any of his 2022 salary before week 1. He'd have to make the 53-man roster to be owed that money. So the 49ers are absolutely in a spot where they can bide their time with Garoppolo. They can create salary cap space in other ways, and we'll see exactly what the strategy is moving forward. All right, so day 3 of the draft is coming up. I have to fix a typo right here on one of the text titles. Again, it's early. This wasn't going to go off without any hitches. What should we expect on day 3? Best players available for the 49ers: Tyson Anderson, Darian Kennard, some interior offensive linemen, including Jamari Salyer from Georgia, who's got guard tackle versatility. Centers are mostly off the board. By the way, Alex Mack, we don't know what the final status there is. John Lynch said that they've talked to Alex Mack over the past couple of days. The situation remains fluid, but Lynch seemed confident. He said, we're entering this draft knowing everything and having all the information that we need to address the center position. Now, Lynch did say that the 49ers have a plan on day 3 for the offensive line. And, if I had a concern, and I'm not going to turn it into a complaint or a gripe quite yet, because I want to see what the 49ers do. They have 6 picks left, and this is a deep draft. They've only picked 3 times, so we're only a third of the way through this. If I had a concern, though, it was because it's that the 49ers haven't done enough to address the offensive line yet. But again, they have 6 picks left. And upon asking Lynch about it yesterday, he said, well, we've got a plan. We realize that the situation there might be a bit sketchy. He didn't use those words, but he acknowledged, I think, that the situation there might be a bit sketchy. And he said that the 49ers have a plan over these final 6 picks to address the offensive line. But they're not divulging what Alex Mack told them about his potential retirement. However, the 49ers have not picked the center. They didn't pick any of the higher caliber center prospects. So maybe that means J.C. Tretter. Maybe it means that they're going to roll Daniel Brunskill at center. Maybe it means that Alex Mack is coming back. The point is that we don't know, and it's impossible to make a full qualitative and quantitative judgment of this draft until it's actually over. And it's going to be over, obviously, in a few hours here on Saturday. So I'll be happy to talk with you guys more about everything then. But right now, it's just too soon. The 49ers are getting back in the war room, and they're getting ready to go for this morning to round out this draft, and we'll see exactly how they handle it. So it's a day game after a night game for the San Francisco 49ers, and for the media, and for you guys who are at home watching this. I was in there till 1 a.m. last night. I did have In-N-Out Burger, though. Made it to In-N-Out before it closed. And now I have to head back into Levi's. That is why we have the coffee. I had a piece about the NFL draft yesterday that I would love for you guys to check out and subscribe to The Athletic through. I'm going to copy and paste it into the chat section here to go ahead and check it out. There you go. That's about the 49ers' patience last night. John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan said they were antsy. They said they were sitting there. They're not used to not picking in the first or second round, and they didn't go until number 61, and they had 2 edge rushers in mind. No surprise that the 49ers obviously put a massive premium on defensive linemen. That's the heartbeat of their team. That's their philosophy. It's rooted right there. They had 2 edge rushers in mind as the second round went, and they were just praying that one of those 2 would fall to them at number 61. And there were several times that John Lynch thought, these guys, there's no way that Drake Jackson falls to us at 61. He was projected to go in the top 10 last year, and he was tempted to trade up, but the 49ers restrained themselves. I just want to know how that worked. Maybe Adam Peters was the steadying influence in that draft room. They decided not to trade up, and they're happy they didn't, because Drake Jackson remained until number 61. And had the 49ers traded up, they would have had to have used either pick 93 or pick number 105 to do so in a package, and that would have meant that they didn't get either Tyrion Davis-Price or Danny Gray. So the 49ers were, at the end of the day, happy they stayed patient. They were like fish out of water there for a while. They've traded up a lot before in the second round to get receivers, get their guy. Not this time, though. They made sure that they stayed put. They made sure they kept those 2 third-round picks. And because of that, they got the 3-pick call of Gabe Jackson, Tyrion Davis-Price, and Danny Gray. That is the situation entering day 3 of the NFL draft. The 49ers still have 6 picks left. It's a day game after night game. I'm off to Levi Stadium. Updates throughout the day. Follow me on Twitter. Subscribe to The Athletic. The link is in that chat section, and I'll try to put it down in the comment section here before I hit the freeway. And also, obviously, right now, if you're watching, hit the subscribe button on the channel because we got a lot of good 49ers content flowing here. All right, everybody, have a good day. I got to drink some more coffee, and I got to go roll up my sleeves and get to work. Everybody take care.